الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continue inshallah ta'ala with the verses in Surah Ghafir, and today is the blessed day of Jumu'ah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless it for all of us. And the day of Jumu'ah is a day of uh, zad, to increase our provisions for the hereafter. You're a traveler and to reach your destination. And there's some areas, some situations where you gain so much in that journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the days of Jum'ah are like this, like Laylatul Qadr, like the month of Ramadan. The days of Jum'ah are, once a person perfected, seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a life-changing thing for a person to hold fast to the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and to make it a day of ibadah. This is Yawm Ibadah. This is the day of ibadah. Even though it's permissible for a Muslim to work on the day of Jumu'ah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even said, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. If the salah is established, then spread on the earth and seek the provisions from Allah, meaning seeking provisions, rizq, matters of rizq, working, things like this. And this is the balance that the believers they have, in which it's still a day of ibadah and the dua is accepted, and the Salatul Jumu'ah and the Salah on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Surah Al-Kahf, and just the heart being seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this blessed day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided us to this day, in which the nations before they were deprived from this blessed day of Jumu'ah. So to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fill it with all matters of good deeds and dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are in verse number 36. Verse number 36 and till 40, inshallah. From 36 to 40 in Surah Ghafir, Surah number 40. Surah number 40. We'll start with the recitation, inshallah. Anyone needs help to find the surah or the verse? Surah number 40, Surah Ghafir, verse number 36. وقال فرعون أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال فرعون يا هامان ابن لي صرحا لعلي أبلغ الأسباب أسباب السماوات فأطلع إلى إله موسى وإني لأظنه كاذبا وكذلك زين لفرعون سوء عمله وصد عن السبيل وما كيد فرعون إلا في تباب وقال الذي آمن يا قوم اتبعون أهدكم سبيل الرشاد يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها ومن عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب. The translation. And Fir'aun said, O Haman, construct for me a tower that I might reach the ways into the heavens, so that I may look at the deity of Musa. But indeed, I think he is a liar. And thus was made attractive to Fir'aun the evil of his deeds, and he was averted from the right way, and the plan of Fir'aun was not except in ruin. And he who believed said, O my people, follow me. I will guide you to the way of right conduct. O my people, this worldly life is only temporary enjoyment, and indeed the hereafter, that is the home of permanent settlement. Whoever does an evil deed would not be recompensed except by the like thereof. But whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, those will enter Jannah, being given provision therein without account. Still with the Mu'min Ali Fir'aun, the believer from the family of Fir'aun, calling his people, advising his people, giving them da'wah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing this ummah through this example how to give da'wah. And again, as we said, we're going through the verses, but inshallah ta'ala, once we finish this part of the surah, we need to go back and see how this Mu'min Ali Fir'aun, how he gave da'wah to his people. We see that from one verse to the other, the different subjects and the clarity of the information. And all of these different subjects are the subjects of the da'wah, and not one or the other. And the weakness or the deficiency happens when a person just do one thing and not the other. But how comprehensively he called his people, so that no doubt whatsoever or things that are not clear in the da'wah. So assuming that we are following from what's mentioned before, and every verse and every detail in it and what is mentioned in the particular order is amazing by itself, as we heard, for example, yesterday about the characteristics of the believers, characteristics of the disbelievers, and how that the believers, because of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they love what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love, and they hate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates. Otherwise, this can seal the hearts of the people. When the believers start to feel in their hearts that they are approving evil actions, or they be at ease with it, this is the steps to seal one's heart, to block one's heart from guidance. So one of the ways to keep the hearts alive with guidance and steadfastness is, especially when a person is giving da'wah, is to have this unseen barrier between the believers and disbelief. This barrier that this is the most abhorred thing whatsoever. When someone associate partners with Allah, when someone disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that this is the superiority of the believers when they are the most humble, when they are among those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So after some of the things that the Mu'min Ali Fir'aun said to Fir'aun and his people, Fir'aun said something, and then continuing also with what more of what he said, meaning the believer. وقال فرعون يا هامان ابن لي صرحا ابن لي صرحا. وقال Fir'aun said, Ya Haman. And Haman is the helper of Fir'aun, what do you call him, the deputy of Fir'aun, the wazir of Fir'aun. And his name is mentioned. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some things are mentioned, some things are not mentioned, and it's all miraculous. And if people would even reflect more, they would see, even the wisdom behind that, whether we know or whether we don't know. But the point here is, Fir'aun is saying such a statement to his deputy wazir Haman, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ, and he's saying that in a way to oppose Musa alayhi salam. Because if you just listen to what he said, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ يَا هَمَانُ, O Haman, إِبْنِ لِي صَرْحًا. Ibni, as you see, there's no ya. It means build. From al-bina. Bana yabni, ibni. Not, oh, my son. You know, the same letters are my son. But here this is fi'l amr. This is a command, so the ya is out. When so ibni, it's supposed to be ibni, but since it's amr, it's a command. Grammar wise, the ya is to be omitted. So he's saying to Haman, ibni li sarhan, build for me sarhan. A sarh is a huge structure, something that is big. As Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said that he commanded Haman to build for him sarhan, وهو القصر العالي, very high ceiling palace or fortified place, al-manif al-shahiq, something very high, something very big. And as this is also mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas, فَأَوْقِدْ لِي يَا هَمَانُ عَلَى الطِّينِ فَجَعَلْ لِي صَرْحًا. He even explained that فَأَوْقِدْ لِي, that means burn the mud to make it clay or to make it strong, so that build for me sarhan, something that is very high, very strong structure. For what? لَعَلِّي أَبْلُغُ الْأَسْبَابِ, so that maybe I would reach أبلغ. Al-bulugh is that when you reach something, when you reach a destination, أبلغ الأسباب, I would reach the means. Al-asbab, the plural of sabab, which is mean. And al-asbab can refers to gates, paths, ways. So he's saying that out of arrogance. When Musa alayhi salam is calling him, or the believer of Musa alayhi salam and the believer of the people of Fir'aun, calling Fir'aun to humble himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that is above all, to turn to him and to worship him alone. So out of his arrogance, since they have the ability to do things and to build structures, build for me a structure so that I can reach very high to see what is Musa alayhi salam is calling me who to worship. Of course, he's making this a way of mockery. And this is something that was something that they were doing to express their kibr, their arrogance, with their very strong structures, and it's even present till today. وقال فرعون يا هامان ابن لي صرحا لعلي أبلغ الأسباب. Some said that Fir'aun was saying that for many other different reasons, and it can, as the verse might carry this meaning, as this is one of the things that they do, that they would isolate themselves, for example, in a place to meditate or to do whatever. So this is something that was one of the things that they do. So he commanded Haman to build a structure for him so that he can be on his own, thinking that, or not being sincere in this, but to deceive his people, as if he is someone that is connected to the gods, and he claims to be one of them because he's the one that is serving them. So it's all forms of deception to his people, as he was a wa'idh before, someone that is admonition to the people, warning them from the plots of Musa alayhi salam, and he's saying that ma urikum illa ma ara, I only make you see what I see, wa ma ahdikum illa sabil al-rashad, I only show you the path of goodness and righteousness and uprightness and all of these things. He has to say these things, and that's why فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَعُوهُ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people of Fir'aun, he belittled them, so they obeyed him. He deceived them, so they obeyed him, and they followed him in his evil belief and evil actions. And that's why they are with him in the punishment till the day of judgment. So either way, it's all valid to be correct. But the apparent meaning here, that he was doing this out of arrogance, making mockery of Musa alayhi salam and the believers. وقال فرعون يا هامان ابن لي صرحا لعلي أبلغ الأسباب. What is the asbab? أسباب السماوات, the paths to the heavens. فأطلع إلى إله موسى. فأطلع, so that means I get to see the God of Musa alayhi salam. وإني لأظنه كاذبا, and indeed I see him as a liar. So لعلي أبلغ الأسباب, لعلي, so that I might, or maybe البلوغ again, to reach الأسباب, أسباب السماوات, the means or the paths to the heavens. طرق السماوات, the paths to the heavens. فأطلع إلى إله موسى. الاطلاع is when you look from above to something. اطلعت على كذا. Even when you look at a book, when you look at something, you look at it from above, so that I would get to see Ilah Musa, the one that Musa alayhi salam is worshipping and is calling us to worship him alone subhanahu wa ta'ala. وإني لأظنه كاذبا. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said, فأطلع إله موسى وإني لأظنه كاذبا وهذا من كفري وتمرده. This is from the disbelief of Fir'aun and his rebellious attitude and his arrogance, that he denied that Musa alayhi salam was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said afterwards, وكذلك زين لفرعون سوء عمله وصد عن السبيل وما كيد فرعون إلا في تباب. This is how the evil of the amal of Fir'aun has been adorned for him. وكذلك زين لفرعون سوء عمله, and وصد عن السبيل, and he's been deprived and pushed away from the right path. As you see, the words are very clear that Fir'aun was overpowered because of his evil actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deprived him from guidance. Because of Fir'aun's own actions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed his heart, as mentioned in the verses before, and the evil deeds becomes beautiful to him. And this is, as always, the ways of the Quran. This is the worst thing that can happen to a person on the face of earth. Not that he's just committing the evil deeds, when the evil deeds becomes the most beautiful to him. And how easy and weak and deceived the human beings can be. This is a very scary thing. Don't ever think that you're always going to see what is right, and what is evil, unless we do something to keep our hearts in such a pure state. Because a person's heart can change, and a person will be amazed if someone else is looking at him. How can he see this? How can he believe in such an evil thing like this? This is how the deception that can happen to the human beings as a result of one's evil actions. So this is one also the things that early generations of Islam used to be so much having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from such a state, that the heart flips, changes, and the evil becomes adorned to be as good, and the good becomes evil. And that's why don't think of those who are opposing the evil, those who are opposing the haqq, that they see the haqq as a beautiful thing, and they see what they're upon is the worst thing ever, and they still doing that for whatever reason. No, this is not the case for everyone. Some people, they truly see the falsehood as the most beautiful thing, and they see the haqq, the truth, as the worst thing. They see this, and they really truly have this in their hearts. This is a punishment from Allah. Why? Because they did it to themselves. Even though al-haqq, the truth versus the falsehood, is supposed to be very clear. If they would just go back to their fitrah, to their pure nature, if they use even their reason, but it's the seal of the heart that makes a person sees things in such a way. And of course, this can be challenged in the easiest way. For example, a wrongdoer, if he oppressing others, he won't like to be oppressed, but he oppresses others. So would he like this for himself? This is by itself destroys all of what he's upon. But he sees this, that he is upon righteousness if he does this, as Fir'aun. وَكَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِفِرْعَوْنَ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ. His evil actions has been adorned for him. وَصُدَّ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ, and he's been deprived away from the right path. As Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said, بِصَنِيعِهِ, because of his actions. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. بِصَنِيعِهِ هَذَا الَّذِي أَرَادَ أَنْ يُوهِمَ بِهِ الرَّعِيَّةِ. He wanted to deceive his dependencies, the people, that he is doing something to build a structure, to get to see the Lord of Musa alayhi salam. When he deceived his people, that he's trying to make sure that they're upon the haqq and the truth, and to expose Musa alayhi salam that he's a liar. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why he said, وَمَا كَيْدُ فِرْعَوْنَ إِلَّا فِي تَبَابٍ, that the kaid, the plots of Fir'aun is in nothing but tabab. At-tabab is, as we heard, ruin, al-khasar, as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and others, they said, al-khasar, loss, like tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. So his affairs, his plots is nothing but in loss. If a person is living at the time of Fir'aun, he would see all the plots of Fir'aun and the structures that he's building and all of these things, that he is doing whatever he intended to do. And he has the upper hand while this is happening. But Musa alayhi salam, calling him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the outcome is already clear. But the believers are the only ones that see the end of things by the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that requires patience, but with the condition that a person is upon the haqq, is upon the truth. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الَّذِي آمَنَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ, going back to what the believer of the people of Fir'aun, continuing to say this to them. The statement that Fir'aun said, whether it's in the same context, going back and forth, or he said it in a different time, it doesn't matter, because this is also valid to happen. It doesn't have to be that they are responding to one another. This is in a different state or different times. Then going back to what Mu'min Ali Fir'aun, he said, وَقَالَ الَّذِي آمَنَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ. Again, he said, Ya qawm, O my people. And again, it is said that الَّذِي آمَن, the one that believes. Ya qawm, O my people, اتَّبِعُونِ, and there's no ya, because this is again a command. He's ordering them. Follow me. اتَّبِعُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ, I will guide you to sabil, path. Ar-Rashad is uprightness and correctness and things like this. And this is different command. It's all of this is fi'l amr, commanding the people, but there's difference between commanding someone, but you're inviting the person with leniency and goodness, and commanding someone because you have authority. The believer of the people of Fir'aun, he's commanding from the authority of al-haq, from the authority of the truth. And if you have the authority of the truth because you know the wahy from Allah, you're supposed to use leniency and goodness and all kinds of things. Because the haqq has a sultan to it. The haqq has in itself authority into the hearts, but to penetrate the hearts, this is something that it doesn't happen with the physical authority. If the physical authority would force the people, they cannot force their hearts. They can force them physically to do things, but they cannot change their hearts. So that's why to observe this, the believers or the callers to Allah, when they are commanding the people, اتَّبِعُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ, the same or the like of this, Fir'aun said it, but Fir'aun is saying it with the physical authority, versus this believer is saying to his people, follow me, I will guide you to the right path, as a way to invite them, and he has no authority over them. And أهدكم, I will guide you. The guidance is in the hands of Allah, but this is the type of guidance that the messengers of Allah was sent with, and the guidance that the callers to Allah are also guide people. They guide people with hidayatul bayan. The hidayah of al-bayan, that means to convey the true message, because the hidayah is two types. Hidayatul bayan, as we talked about that before, and hidayatul tawfiq. Hidayatul bayan is to convey the true message. That's it. This is guidance in itself. And this is a great favor from Allah, that if it's still present on the face of earth. As long as there are people on the face of earth conveying the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is goodness on the face of earth. And the guidance of the heart, which is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, hidayatul tawfiq. When someone listens to this message and he accepts it and he believes and he follows. And this is only the believers, they accept it. So he's saying that to his people, Ya qawmi ittabi'uni ahdikum sabil al-rashad. And compare that to what Fir'aun said, وَمَا أَهْدِيكُمْ إِلَّا سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ. Right, when he said to his people previously, Fir'aun said, وَمَا أَهْدِيكُمْ, I do not guide you except to the path of al-rashad, to the path of righteousness. So Fir'aun versus this believer from his family, and the sabil al-rashad is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any human being claims that he has the path of righteousness, if it's not based on the wahy from Allah, this is false. وَقَالَ الَّذِي آمَنَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ. Then going back and reminding them again of the reality of this life versus the hereafter. يَا قَوْمِ إِنَّمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا مَتَاعٌ وَإِنَّ الْآخِرَةَ هِيَ دَارُ الْقَرَارِ. O my people, and this is the word that has been repeated in every time he speaks to his people. So that again, reminding them that he is one of them. He wants what is best for them. He's not a stranger that he wants to harm them. He is one of them. If harm happens to them, he is one of them. Ya qawmi innama hadi al-hayatu dunya. Innama, from the letters that shows this exclusiveness, that indeed nothing else but this. This hadihi, this al-haya ad-dunya, this life ad-dunya, the closer one or the lesser one. Both are correct. The closer one, which is the immediate one that you're living, or it's dunya because it's less than the hereafter. Mata', as we explained that before. Mata' is not enjoyment. Mata' is temporary enjoyment. This is what al-mata' means. And it's a word used for the things that you purchase or that you have that you use. The furniture is called mata'. and it's not going to be forever. So this is what every time you see mata' in the Quran is basically something temporary, unless you add to it something that makes it an everlasting one. So إنما هذه الدنيا متاع. This dunya is nothing but mata', which is enjoyment, yes, but it's only temporary. وإن الآخرة, and indeed الآخرة, the last one, the last day, the hereafter, هي indeed it is دار القرار, the abode of al-qarar, the place of settlement, the everlasting place. So as Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said to his people that this dunya that made you or prevented you from believing in the messenger of Allah. Why? Because they are clinging to this worldly life, because the message of the messengers would not be established unless the people believe in the hereafter. And if they believe in the hereafter, then they would deal with this dunya, with this life accordingly. So that's why many people, they reject it, because they don't want to, thinking that they won't want to lose the worldly benefit that they have in this life. So he said, يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع أي قليلة زائلة ثانية عن قريب تذهب. Nobody can deny this. It goes away. Very soon it's going to be, you'll depart from it. وتزول, and it becomes finished. It becomes diminished. وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار, the one that is everlasting one, either na'im or jahim, either delight or punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why he's saying that to them? Because this is what, again, deprived them from seeing the truth. And this is an essential thing in the da'wah to Allah. That's why those who give call to others to embrace the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only talk about the dunya, this is not the da'wah of the messengers of Allah. And thinking that if I say that to them, they might not listen to me, it's not to you. This is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And human beings are created to believe in the hereafter. So they are ready for it. But you need to convey it in the most proper way with all of the introductions that I mentioned before. But to say to the people that if you believe in Islam, this is what makes perfect sense, and this is, you would find everything in your life be in place and everything, mashallah, this is all good. But that's the only message that you give to the people, you're deceiving them. What if a person would say, I'm good, I'm fine, this is what I'm seeking in this life, and leave me alone. The hereafter has to be mentioned. And all of what you have of goodness in this life is going to go away, and the hereafter is the everlasting one. يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار. Then he also explains to them the effect of their actions in the hereafter. من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثله. Whoever عمل did سيئة, any sin, any evil deed, فلا يجزى إلا مثله. He would not be recompensed except by the like of it. And as you see, negating an exception, that means this is the only thing. He would not be recompensed except the like of it. You can say, من عمل سيئة يجزى مثلها. Whoever do evil, he will be recompensed the like of it. But when you say, فلا يجزى إلا مثلها, he is not going to be recompensed except the like of it, this is very exclusive. And this shows the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثله ومن عمل صالحا, and whoever do righteous good deeds, من ذكر أو أنثى, whether he is male or female, وهو مؤمن, and he is a believer. وقال الذي آمن, he is a believer. So it has to be with the foundation of al-iman. فأولئك يدخلون الجنة, these are the ones that would enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يرزقون فيها, they will be provided in it, in Jannah, بغير حساب, without an end, without limit whatsoever. So any good deeds, and this is another subject in the da'wah, the people might think they're doing good things in this life. So as long as a person do good things in this life, he's a good person. And this is the good religion. People would say these types of things. Yes, sure, you do good, but you will only be rewarded for it according to your intentions in this life. But if you include the hereafter, and you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter, you get the best of this life and in the hereafter. Otherwise, you have nothing in the hereafter. Because the condition for the deeds to be accepted, that you have to be a believer. وَمَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أُنْثَىٰ, and he is explaining that to his people. So that also for those who think that as long as they're doing good, this is what is sufficient for them. And as Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he said, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى, whether it's deeds done by the heart or physical actions or speech of the tongue, فأولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب, that nobody can ever comprehend the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them. And then after that, he would continue to say to them, but we'll stop here inshallah ta'ala. But as you see, what the disbelievers they say, what the believers they say, and how the truth is being conveyed very straightforward, but with goodness, with manners, and with hearts that are strong. And this is what is very important for the one that called to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The heart is full of certainty. The heart is upon the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is how the person would speak, not someone that has doubt or someone that feels inferior, but someone that is upon the truth and is calling his people with the best manners possible, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also instructs us and teaches in the Quran how to give da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it's not the subject of da'wah, we learn also from these verses how the believers are and the concepts of the deen and the matters of belief. We learn it from his statements, because the believers, whether he's a da'i calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not calling others to Allah, it's the same things that they say, because they're honest and truthful. So what's in their hearts is what they invite people to. They're not inviting them to something else other than what they believe. So every single Muslim should be upon these beliefs. And if a person get to invite others, he would just express the proper belief. So there's no belief for the non-callers versus those who call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody should have the same belief and the same purity of their hearts. And then different context of things is to be expressed. So we'll stop here inshallah ta'ala, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who listen and follow the best of what they hear inshallah.